So this is our YBA2, which is actually a 6v6 version. We have the other version as well. We're going to crack this open and have a look at it. Often making the YBA2 bass mates more guitar friendly is a simple matter of changing the slope resistor in the EQ section. What they do to give a good bass, clear bass sound is they give a lot of treble emphasis to the signal and some bass attenuation, which cuts the mid-range. And if you find the resistor that's doing that and put it back to a more guitar-oriented value, you get a guitar amp out of a bass amp. Okay, let's look inside. Okay, so this is my YBA2, better known as a bass mate, the 15-watt cousin of the Guitar Mate amplifiers from Traynor. They're fairly simple and fairly straightforward. They are designed to be a bass amp, so there are some weird things about them that can be fixed to make them a better guitar amp. So what we're seeing here is the signal comes in from the input jack, goes along to the first tube where you have your first stage of cathode resistor, and that sets up the gain for that stage, 1500 with a 25 mic cap, microfarad. So a typical Fender setup. And then signal comes out and goes to this 05 interstage cap with 100K plate load. Signal comes out through here, and here's where you can convert it from a bass amp to a guitar amp. So the unique thing about this amp is the tone stack, which I've modified here. So the key here is the slope resistor. So the slope resistor exists between the treble cap and the bass cap, which is on a control on the bass knob. But to separate the two and sort of get a crossover effect, so the treble adjusts only the treble and the bass only adjusts the bass, is they use something called a slope resistor. So unique to these amplifiers, the slope resistor was 330K. A typical Fender value for the reverb amps is about 100K, which is still very high. The early Bassmans used 56K. Marshall eventually ended up experimenting with 33K on their lead amps. So what I've done is I've simply bypassed the 330K resistor with a 56K, which gives me about 43K slope resistor, and that brings the mids and the bass much closer to the treble. It gives it a much tighter sound. Tighter isn't the right word, but a much more guitar-oriented sound with mid-range and so on. And then the other little trick I've done here, I believe that's a 330 picofarad treble cap, and I've bypassed it with an additional 150 picofarad, 160 picofarad cap. So 330, 60, so 470 for the treble cap. So leaning a little bit towards the Marshall type treble brightness. And then the rest of the amp, cathode biased. This particular amp has two 6v6s. So cathode biased, it's not fixed biased. And it's also has no feedback loop. So the power amp runs a little more wide open than the Guitar Mate, but it's still a little smoother because it's cathode biased. And that's basically that for this amp. So fairly simple. If you want to convert a bass mate to a better guitar type amp, simply drop that slope resistor from 330K down to whatever you feel is the right value. It's pretty much that simple. Okay, for the fun of it, I've just put it back to the original 330. So it's thinner and brighter. One other cool little thing I should show you with these amps. People often wonder how you get the screws in, because these ones hidden behind the transformer are almost impossible to tighten up. And the answer is that the Grille actually unscrews from the inside in a manner that you probably never noticed. And then 2 screws accessed from the back, put it all back together. And of course the screws are Robertson, the greatest Canadian invention of all time that no one knows about except Canadians. By the way, this is a Robertson screw with a square head. Hopefully you can see that. Always get your screws in finger tight before you whack them with the drill. That way you're not making any new holes. Done.